Hi everyone, my name is Delgado, and I'm very excited to present our Systematization of Knowledge on Tangible Privacy and Security Interfaces to you today. I'm doing this talk on behalf of my amazing co-authors, Maximiliane Windl, Florian and Karola Marky. First of all, I'd like to give a quick explanation of what I'm even talking about when I mention Tangible Privacy and Security Interfaces, or TaPSI. With this, I refer to the overlap of tangible, so physical user interfaces, and human-centered security and privacy. To make this a bit clearer, some off-the-shelf examples of such interfaces include traditional or smart webcam covers, smart cards, physical authentication tokens such as the YubiKey, or educational board games. Due to their tangible nature, these interfaces make it very easy for users to understand when, where, and how they are being used. And this is especially important for security and privacy because these topics are frequently perceived as very complex, annoying, or too abstract. Despite their advantages, until now, there is no overarching conceptualization of tangible privacy and security interfaces. And this is why we present this first systematization of knowledge. I will first explain what we actually did, and then later I will present our results to you. So we performed a systematic literature survey, and for this we searched for relevant publications in 28 different venues. Next, we used backward snowball sampling to broaden our sample further and reuse sampling biases that might have resulted from specific choices of venues or search keywords. And we then ended up with 80 publications in our final sample. The publications in our sample were published from 1999 to March of 2024. And we observed an increase in publications over the last few years. Also, snowball sampling really allowed us to identify many publications in venues that we did not target at the beginning. We also found that CHI was the venue with the most publications on tangible privacy and security interfaces by far. Next, we applied hypothematic analysis to our sample. So we used both inductive and deductive analysis methods. And our aim was to answer 3 different research questions. The first one was, what is a unifying definition and description of TaPSI? And to answer this, we analyzed the used terminology and definitions in our publications, as well as the addressed usable privacy and security domains. Then the second research question is, what approaches to TaPSI research exist and which have yet to be explored? And for this, we analyzed the contributions and applied methods in the publications. And the third research question was, how are TaPSI designed in terms of appearance and functionality? And for this, we described the implementations of TaPSI and also the opportunities and challenges. I will now present our most interesting findings. Please refer to our paper for more details. First, to answer research question 1, which focuses on how to describe TaPSI, we derived a definition of tangible privacy and security interfaces. So for us, they are tangibles, which means they exist in the physical world and can be manipulated or perceived by touch and potentially also other senses that help users manage, protect, and understand information privacy and security. We also observed that research in our sample addressed a large variety of different usable privacy and security problems. In particular, it described tangible privacy and security interfaces for authentication, for privacy, for access control, as well as indicators or warnings, and for education. This really highlights their potential across most UPS domains. The second research question focused on how TaPSI have been investigated so far. And to answer this, we investigated the contributions and methods of the publications in our sample. And we found that most publications in our sample had artifact and/or empirical contributions. They usually also presented 1 to 7 different TaPSI with very different levels of readiness. So from low fidelity prototypes or Wizard of Oz prototypes to commercial products. Moreover, 65% of the publications in our sample presented a lab study, but they were also in the wild studies and online studies. These studies usually involved hands-on tasks, so participants had to really use the interfaces, as well as surveys and interviews. Our final research question addressed the functionalities and appearance of TaPSI. And to answer this, we present a design space for tangible privacy and security interfaces. The design space distinguishes their appearance, which we call the look and feel, and the look and feel of a TaPSI refers for us to the form factors and materials. And also the user interaction they support, which we divided into user input and system output. We also identified additional factors that impact the design of TaPSI, like for example, the metaphors they might apply, their shape and size, whether they are active or passive, this means if they require a power source, and finally also the level of technology readiness. And to make our findings more graspable, we also discuss in our paper how concrete examples from related work apply to this design space. Next, we also investigated the inherent opportunities and challenges to TaPSI. And in regard to the opportunities, we found that physical manipulation is very intuitive, then also they support cognition and facilitate social interactions. They can cause emotional reactions. They are very direct and ad hoc, which means they provide means for immediate control and feedback. And they are also physically separate things, so hackers might, for example, have to access them in addition to a targeted system. Moreover, they are also physical barriers. Then in regard to the challenges, we also found that they are frequently not very versatile and very difficult or costly to scale. Then users' preferences for their appearance and functionalities vary a lot. Moreover, having to interact with them physically can be very inconvenient and socially awkward for people. And finally, they require physical access, so they are prone to being lost or forgotten. So to wrap up, we condensed our findings into the TaPSI Research Framework. This framework supports future researchers in designing research projects involving these interfaces. First, the opportunities and challenges we identified support their reflection on whether tangible solutions are really best suited for their specific problem. Then we give indications on how to best find relevant related works and also discuss interesting questions that are still open. And also we guide researchers in the implementation and evaluation of tangible privacy and security interfaces. As mentioned before, we identified still open questions, which indicate promising starting points for future research. And the first one is that very few TaPSI in our sample were tailored to specific needs of specific user groups. Moreover, TaPSI have shown that they can be inclusive to diverse user groups. However, most interfaces in our sample were not designed or evaluated for accessibility. The work in our sample highlight a potential positive impact on cognition. But there is a lack of research on specific design aspects that enhance or hinder cognition. And finally, there's very little correlational research, which could be used to explore relationships, for example, between the interface size and user perceptions, or examine the impact of personal attributes on the preferences of users. Moreover, we could not find publications in our sample that offer comprehensive insights over various EUPS domains. So to sum up, we used the keyword searched targeting 28 venues and supplemented this by backwards snowbot sampling, and then applied hybrid thematic analysis to 80 publications. And with this, we derived a definition of TaPSI, a design space of TaPSI, and we also introduced the TaPSI Research Framework to guide future researchers in implementing and evaluating TaPSI. So thank you very much for your attention, and if you have more questions, please refer to our paper or write me an email.